Mrs. Whitaker, did you authorize a $5,000 purchase at Lux Jewelers? The question hit me like a slap to the face. I gripped my phone tighter, my scrub still damp with sweat from a grueling 12-hour shift.
What?
No, I didn't. That's impossible. I'm afraid there's been a series of large transactions on your joint account over the past week, the bank representative continued. We've flagged them as potentially fraudulent. My stomach churned. How much? In total, just over $15,000. The world tilted. I steadied myself against the kitchen counter, my mind racing. $15,000.
Gone.
My name is Maggie, and in that moment, I realized my life was about to implode. Can you give me more details? I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. Of course. There was the jewelry purchase, a stay at the Belmont Hotel downtown, and several restaurant charges. Each word was a dagger. The Belmont. That was where Holden and I had our honeymoon. I'll need to discuss this with my husband, I managed to say. Please freeze the account for now. I ended the call and stared at the fridge, covered in Lena's artwork and school photos. My beautiful, innocent daughter. How could I tell her that her father?
No.
I couldn't jump to conclusions. There had to be an explanation. The front door opened, and Holden's whistle echoed through the house. Honey, I'm home. I squared my shoulders and walked into the living room. Holden's smile faltered when he saw my face. What's wrong? He asked, setting down his gym bag. Did you spend $15,000 without telling me? His eyes widened, then narrowed. What are you talking about? The bank just called. Our account's been drained, Holden. Jewelry, hotels, restaurants. That's ridiculous, he scoffed. Someone must have stolen our information. I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to. But the pit in my stomach told a different story. The Belmont, Holden. That's where they stayed. His face paled. Maggie, I can explain. Don't. I held up a hand. Not now. Lena will be home soon. As if on cue, the school bus squealed to a stop outside. Holden's eyes darted to the window, then back to me. We'll talk later, he said, his voice low. This isn't what you think. I watched him plaster on a smile as Lena burst through the door, backpack bouncing. She hugged Holden, then me, chattering about her day. I held her tight, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. How could I protect her from what was coming? Mom, Lena pulled back, her brow furrowed. Are you okay? I forced a smile. Just tired, sweetie. How about we order pizza tonight? As Lena cheered and Holden avoided my gaze, I made a silent vow. Whatever was happening, whatever secrets Holden was keeping, I would get to the bottom of it. For Lena's sake. For my own. The game was on and I intended to win. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Holden's face, a mix of guilt and defiance. By morning, I was a bundle of raw nerves, desperate for answers. We need to talk, I said as Holden shuffled into the kitchen. He nodded, avoiding my gaze. After we dropped Lena off, the car ride was tense, Lena's chatter the only thing breaking the silence. As soon as she disappeared into the school building, I turned to Holden. Explain, I demanded. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's not what you think, Maggie. I've been investing. Investing? I scoffed. In what? Diamond necklaces and five-star hotels. It's complicated, he muttered. I didn't want to worry you until I had everything figured out. Bullshit, I snapped. You're lying to me, Holden. I can see it in your eyes. His face hardened. You're being paranoid. This is why I didn't tell you. You always overreact. I felt like I'd been slapped. Overreact? You spent our savings without telling me. Our savings. He laughed bitterly. You mean your savings. You're the one with the big career, remember? I'm just the stay-at-home dad. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was the hospital. I have to go, I said, my voice shaking. This isn't over. I spent my shift in a daze, barely able to focus on my patients. When I finally got home, exhausted and emotionally drained, I found Evelyn in our living room. There you are, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. I was beginning to think you'd forgotten you had a family. I bit back a retort. Hello, Evelyn. I didn't know you were coming over. Well, someone had to be here for Lena, she sniffed. If you spent more time at home, Maggie, maybe you'd know what's going on under your own roof. I felt my anger rising. What's that supposed to mean? Evelyn stood, smoothing her expensive slacks. It means, dear, that while you're off playing doctor, your family is falling apart. Holden's been stressed, Lena's grades are slipping, and you're never here. That's not fair, I protested. I'm working to support us. And at what cost? Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Your daughter barely knows you, and your husband, well, let's just say a man has needs. My blood ran cold. What are you implying? She patted my cheek condescendingly. Oh, nothing, dear. Just think about your priorities. As she left, I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. Was Evelyn right? Had I been so focused on my career that I'd missed what was happening in my own home?
No.
I shook my head, trying to clear the doubt. This wasn't my fault. Something was going on with Holden, and I was going to find out what. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through our bank statements again. The jewelry, the hotel, the restaurants. There had to be a pattern. As I stared at the screen, a name caught my eye. Raina Caldwell. She'd been copied on a PDA email about a fundraiser at one of the restaurants Holden had visited. Raina, the perfectly polished PDA mom with the megawatt smile. Could she be involved? I felt a new determination rising within me. I was going to get to the bottom of this no matter what. For Lena, for myself, and for the truth that Holden seemed determined to hide. The school hallway buzzed with activity as I helped set up for the PDA bake sale. I'd taken a rare day off, determined to be more present in Lena's life and to keep an eye on Holden's involvement with the PDA. As I arranged cupcakes on a tray, Raina Caldwell's voice cut through the chatter. Oh my God, girls, you won't believe what happened. I glanced up, catching sight of Raina surrounded by a group of admiring mothers. Her perfectly manicured hand toyed with something at her neck. Is that new? One of the women asked, eyeing the glittering pendant. Raina's laugh tinkled like wind chimes. It is. A little gift from a secret admirer. My hands froze mid-motion. The pendant looked eerily similar to one I'd seen in the Lux Jewelers catalog. A secret admirer? Another mom giggled. Do tell. Raina leaned in conspiratorially. Let's just say he's tall, dark, and very generous. My stomach churned as the pieces started to fall into place. The jewelry, the restaurants, the hotel. It all pointed to one sickening conclusion. Maggie. Lena's voice snapped me back to reality. Are you okay? You look pale. I forced a smile. I'm fine, sweetie. Just a little tired. Lena's brow furrowed. Is it because of Dad? I heard you arguing the other night. My heart clenched. Oh, honey. It's just grown-up stuff. Nothing for you to worry about. She nodded, but her eyes held a wisdom beyond her years. I know something's wrong, Mom. I'm not a little kid anymore. I pulled her into a hug, fighting back tears. I know you're not. I promise we'll talk soon, okay? As Lena went to join her friends, I turned back to the bake sale table, my mind racing. I needed proof. Concrete evidence that Holden and Raina were Mrs. Whitaker. A hand touched my arm. I looked up to see Calvin Caldwell, Raina's husband, smiling kindly. I just wanted to thank you for volunteering. It means a lot to have parents like you involved.
Guilt washed over me.
Here was a man whose world was about to be shattered, and he had no idea. It's my pleasure. I managed, my voice tight. As Calvin walked away, I made a decision. I couldn't confront Holden or Raina without solid proof. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I pulled out my phone, sending a quick text to my sister. Can you pick up Lena after school tomorrow? Something's come up at work. It wasn't entirely a lie. This was work, the work of saving my family and my sanity. Tomorrow, I'd follow Holden. I'd see where he went, who he met. And if my suspicions were correct, I'd have the evidence I needed to confront him once and for all. As I finished setting up the bake sale, I caught sight of Raina again. She was laughing, her hand still playing with that damned necklace. My resolve hardened. Enjoy it while you can, I muttered under my breath. Because your perfect little world is about to come crashing down. The game was on, and I was playing for keeps. For Lena. For my dignity. And for the truth that had been hidden from me for far too long. My heart pounded as I parked my car across the street from our house. Holden's car was still in the driveway, but I knew it wouldn't be for long. He'd mentioned a PDA meeting tonight, but after what I'd overheard at the bake sale, I wasn't buying it. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, Holden emerged, looking far too polished for a simple school meeting. He got into his car and pulled away. I waited a few moments before following, careful to keep a safe distance. To my surprise, Holden didn't head towards the school. Instead, he drove to the upscale part of town, eventually pulling into the parking lot of Le Petit Café, a trendy spot known for its intimate atmosphere. I parked across the street, my stomach in knots. Part of me hoped I was wrong, that this was all a misunderstanding. But as I watched Holden enter the cafe, that hope crumbled. 5 minutes later, a sleek red convertible pulled up. Raina Caldwell stepped out, looking like she'd just stepped off a runway. She glanced around furtively before hurrying inside. There it is, I whispered to myself, my voice shaking. The truth, plain as day. I wanted to storm in there, to confront them both. But I knew I needed more than just this. I needed irrefutable proof. Pulling out my phone, I started taking pictures. Holden's car. Raina's arrival. The cafe front. It wasn't much, but it was a start. An hour crawled by. I alternated between seething anger and crushing sadness. How long had this been going on? How could Holden do this to us?
To Lena?
Finally, they emerged. Holden had his arm around Raina's waist, pulling her close. They shared a lingering kiss before parting ways. I felt sick. As Raina drove off, Holden stood there for a moment, a satisfied smile on his face. It was an expression I hadn't seen in years, not directed at me, anyway. I snapped a few more pictures, my hands shaking with rage. Then, making a split-second decision, I got out of my car. Holden, I called out, striding across the street. He whirled around, the color draining from his face. Maggie?
What?
What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing, I said, my voice ice cold. Funny, I don't see any other PDA members around. Holden's eyes darted around, looking for an escape. I can explain. Save it, I spat. I saw everything. You and Raina.
The kiss.
All of it. He reached for me, his face pleading. Maggie, please. It's not what you think. I jerked away from his touch. Don't you dare try to lie to me again. Think about Lena, he said desperately. We can work this out. For her sake. The mention of our daughter ignited a fresh wave of fury. Don't you dare use Lena as an excuse. You should have thought about her before you started sneaking around with that woman. Holden's face hardened. You're one to talk. Always at the hospital, never home. What was I supposed to do? Be a decent human being? I suggested, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Communicate? Or here's a wild idea. Not cheat on your wife. We stood there, the weight of years of resentment and betrayal hanging between us. Finally, I took a deep breath. This isn't over, Holden. Not by a long shot. But I'm not doing this here in a parking lot. Go home. We'll talk later. As I walked back to my car, I felt a strange mix of devastation and determination. The life I thought I had was over, but a new chapter was just beginning, and this time I was writing the rules. I spent the next day gathering every shred of evidence I could find. Bank statements, credit card bills, photos from the cafe. I compiled it all into a damning dossier of Holden's betrayal. My hands shook as I arranged the papers on the dining room table, waiting for him to return from dropping Lena off at her friend's house. When the front door opened, I steeled myself. This was it. The moment of truth. Maggie. Holden called out. Where are you? In here, I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. He walked in, his easy smile faltering as he took in the scene before him. What's all this? I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit down, Holden. We need to talk. As he lowered himself into the seat, I pushed the first bank statement towards him. Care to explain these charges? His eyes widened, then narrowed. I told you, I've been investing. Stop. I cut him off. Just stop lying. I know about Raina. The color drained from his face. Maggie, I saw you. I continued, my voice rising. At the cafe. Kissing her. And this. I held up a photo of Raina's necklace. This matches perfectly with the charge from Lux Jewelers. Holden's expression hardened. You've been spying on me? Spying? I laughed bitterly. Is that what you're focusing on? Not the fact that you've been cheating on me and spending our savings on your mistress? He stood up abruptly, pacing the room.
You don't understand.
Things haven't been right between us for a long time. You're always at work, always putting your career first. Don't you dare try to blame this on me, I snapped. If you were unhappy, you could have talked to me. We could have gone to counseling. Instead, you chose to betray me, to betray our family. Holden's face twisted with anger. Family? What family? You're never here, Maggie. Lena barely knows you. Maybe if you'd been around more, none of this would have happened. His words hit me like a physical blow, but I refused to let him see how much they hurt. That's rich, coming from you. At least I was working to support us, not sneaking around behind my spouse's back. You know what? Holden sneered. You're just looking for an excuse to leave, Maggie. Maybe you're the one with something to hide. All those late nights at the hospital. Who knows what you've been up to? I stared at him, incredulous. Are you seriously trying to accuse me of cheating? After everything I've just shown you? He shrugged, a cruel smile playing on his lips. If the shoe fits. Something inside me snapped. I stood up, gathering the papers into a pile. Get out, I said, my voice low and dangerous.
What? Get out.
I repeated, each word dripping with venom. Pack a bag and leave. I don't care where you go, but you're not staying here tonight. Holden's bravado faltered.
Maggie, come onorevole.
We can work this out. Think about Lena. I am thinking about Lena, I interrupted. I'm thinking about what kind of example I want to set for her. And it's not staying with a lying, cheating husband who tries to gaslight me when he's caught. For a moment, we stood there, the weight of our crumbling marriage hanging between us. Then, without another word, Holden turned and walked out of the room. As I heard him moving around upstairs, packing a bag, I sank back into my chair. The confrontation was over, but I knew this was just the beginning. The real battle for my dignity, for Lena's future, for justice, was only just beginning. The days following Holden's departure were a blur of tears, sleepless nights, and hushed conversations with Lena. I'd told her a sanitized version of the truth, that Dad and I were having problems and needed some time apart. Her quiet acceptance broke my heart all over again. As I lay awake one night, staring at the ceiling, a plan began to form. Holden and Raina had shattered our lives without a second thought. It was time they faced the consequences of their actions. The next morning, I called in sick to work and dropped Lena off at school. Then I drove to the local print shop. I need to send an anonymous letter, I told the clerk, sliding a carefully worded note across the counter. It detailed Holden and Raina's affair, along with dates and locations of their meetings. At the bottom, I'd added Calvin Caldwell's name and address. No problem, the clerk said, eyeing me curiously. It'll be mailed out today. As I left the shop, a mix of guilt and vindication swirled in my stomach. Was I doing the right thing? Calvin deserved to know the truth, didn't he? The annual school fundraiser was scheduled for the following week. I knew both Raina and Holden would be there, Raina as the event organizer, and Holden as a volunteer. It was the perfect stage for their downfall. The night of the fundraiser arrived. I dressed carefully, armoring myself in a sleek black dress and heels. Lena chattered excitedly as we drove to the school, oblivious to the tension radiating from me. As we entered the gymnasium, transformed for the evening with twinkling lights and elegant decorations, I scanned the crowd. Raina stood near the stage, resplendent in a red dress, directing volunteers. Holden was setting up a booth in the corner, pointedly avoiding my gaze. Mom, Lena tugged at my hand. Can I go find my friends? I nodded, forcing a smile.
Of course, sweetie.
Have fun. As Lena disappeared into the crowd, I made my way to the refreshment table. Calvin Caldwell stood nearby, nursing a glass of punch and looking distinctly uncomfortable. Calvin, I greeted him, my heart racing. How are you? He turned, his eyes haunted. Maggie. I'm not sure, to be honest. I feigned concern. Is everything all right? Calvin's gaze drifted to Raina, then back to me. I received a letter, he said quietly. About Raina and your husband. I gasped, the picture of shocked innocence. Oh, Calvin. I'm so sorry. He nodded, his jaw clenching. I didn't want to believe it. But then I started noticing things. The late nights, the secret phone calls. As we spoke, I saw Raina approaching, her smile faltering as she noticed us together. Calvin, darling, she said, her voice overly bright. I've been looking for you everywhere. Calvin's entire demeanor changed. He straightened up, his eyes hardening. Have you, Raina? Or were you too busy with Holden Whitaker? The color drained from Raina's face. What are you talking about? Don't. Calvin's voice trembled with anger. Don't you dare lie to me. Not here, not now. As their voices rose, heads began to turn. Holden, noticing the commotion, started making his way towards us. I stepped back, my heart pounding. This was it. The moment of truth. As Calvin's accusations grew louder and Raina's denials more frantic, I caught Holden's eye across the room. The look of dawning horror on his face told me everything I needed to know. The truth was out, and there was no going back. The school gymnasium fell silent as Calvin's accusation echoed off the walls. All eyes turned to Raina, her perfect facade crumbling under the weight of her exposed lies. Calvin, please, Raina pleaded, her voice trembling. Not here. We can talk about this at home. But Calvin was beyond reason. Months of suspicion and hurt poured out of him like a dam breaking. How could you do this, Raina? To our family? To our friends? I stood frozen, a mix of vindication and guilt churning in my stomach. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? To see them exposed, humiliated as I had been? Holden pushed through the crowd, his face ashen. Calvin, man, let's take this outside. Think of the kids. Calvin rounded on him, eyes blazing. The kids? You want to talk about the kids? How about how you've destroyed 2 families with your selfish actions? Whispers rippled through the crowd. Parents shielded their children's ears, but their eyes remained glued to the unfolding drama. Mom, Lena's voice cut through the chaos. She stood at the edge of the crowd, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. What's happening? Before I could reach her, Evelyn appeared, wrapping an arm around Lena's shoulders. Come, dear, she said, shooting me a venomous glare. This is no place for children. As Evelyn led Lena away, Raina's composure finally shattered. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she sobbed, mascara streaking down her cheeks. We never meant to hurt anyone. But you did. I found myself saying, stepping forward. All eyes turned to me. You hurt everyone. Your spouses, your children, your friends. All for what? A cheap thrill? Holden's eyes met mine, a mixture of shame and defiance in them. Maggie, don't. Don't what, Holden? I cut him off. Don't tell the truth? Isn't that what you've been doing all along? The room buzzed with shocked murmurs. The perfect couples, the pillars of the PDA, exposed for the frauds they were. Calvin, his anger seemingly spent, sagged against a nearby table. I want a divorce, he said quietly, but in the tense silence, everyone heard. Raina's wail of despair was drowned out by the sudden commotion at the gym doors. Principal Thornton burst in, his face red with exertion. What in God's name is going on here? This is a school fundraiser, not a soap opera. As he tried to restore order, I slipped away, searching for Lena. I found her in an empty classroom, Evelyn hovering nearby. Mom, Lena's voice was small, uncertain. Is it true? About Dad and Mrs. Caldwell. I knelt before her, taking her hands in mine.
Oh, sweetheart.
I'm so sorry you had to find out like this. Evelyn sniffed disapprovingly. This is what happens when mothers prioritize their careers over their families. I stood, facing her. No, Evelyn. This is what happens when people lie and cheat and betray those who trust them. But it stops now. Turning back to Lena, I managed a small smile. Let's go home, sweetie. We have a lot to talk about. As we left the school, the sounds of arguments still echoing from the gym, I felt a strange sense of lightness. The truth was out, painful as it was. Now we could begin to heal. But as I buckled Lena into the car, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that this was just the beginning of a long, difficult journey. The fallout from tonight would ripple through our lives for years to come. But for the first time in months, I felt ready to face whatever came next. The weeks following the school fundraiser fiasco were a blur of lawyers, counseling sessions, and tearful conversations with Lena. My sister, Kate, had opened her home to us, providing a safe haven as we navigated the choppy waters of our new reality. One crisp autumn morning, as Lena and I sat on Kate's porch swing, sipping hot chocolate, my phone buzzed. Holden's name flashed on the screen. Do you want me to answer it? Lena asked, her eyes searching mine. I shook my head, silencing the call. No, sweetie. If it's important, he'll leave a message. Sure enough, a voicemail notification appeared moments later. I listened to it while Lena went inside to help Kate with lunch. Maggie, it's me. Holden's voice was strained. I need to see you. To explain. Please. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. Part of me wanted to ignore him, to continue building our new life without his toxic presence. But I knew we needed closure, for Lena's sake, if nothing else. That afternoon, I met Holden at a nearby park. He looked haggard, the polished facade of the man I'd married long gone. Maggie, I'm so sorry, he began as soon as I sat down. I never meant for any of this to happen. I held up a hand, stopping him. Holden, I didn't come here for apologies. I came to tell you that Lena and I are moving forward. Without you. His face crumpled. Please, give me another chance. I'll do anything. Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. It's too late for that, I said, my voice steady. This isn't just about the affair, Holden. It's about respect and trust, and you've lost both. But our family, I interrupted, is Lena and me now. We're healing, growing stronger every day, and we'll continue to do so, with or without your involvement. Holden's shoulders sagged in defeat. I understand. Can I still see Lena? I nodded. That's up to her. I won't keep her from you, but I won't force her to see you either. You'll have to rebuild that relationship on your own. As I stood to leave, Holden caught my hand. Maggie, I truly am sorry. For everything. I looked into his eyes, seeing genuine remorse there. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. I know, I said softly. Goodbye, Holden. Walking away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The anger and hurt that had consumed me for so long began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of peace and possibility. Back at Kate's, I found Lena curled up on the couch, reading. She looked up as I entered, her eyes questioning. It's over, I said simply, sitting beside her. We're starting a new chapter, just you and me. How does that sound? Lena snuggled into my side. Scary, she admitted, but kind of exciting too. I hugged her close, marveling at her resilience. That's exactly how I feel, sweetheart. As we sat there, planning our future, I realized that this painful journey had given us both an unexpected gift, the strength to face whatever life threw our way, together. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But for the first time in years, I felt truly alive, ready to embrace the unknown with open arms. Holden's betrayal had shattered the life I thought I wanted. But from those broken pieces, Lena and I were building something new, something stronger. A life filled with honesty, trust, and unconditional love. And that, I realized, was the greatest revenge of all.